The man sat still amid the blaze. Flames were devouring everything around him, yet he did not run. The wind whipped his face, smoke stung his eyes, but in his gaze there was not a hint of fear. Others screamed, trampled each other, abandoned one another to survive. But he stood, motionless in the chaos, silent like a stone, an unflinching witness to the approaching apocalypse. Can you imagine? In a moment when the survival instinct takes over all reason, there is one who does not move, not because he is frozen, but because his mind is no longer ruled by fear. A pause amid the noise, a point of stillness in the rushing torrent. Why can someone remain calm in the face of destruction? The answer lies in a philosophy over 2,000 years old, a way of life that needs no church, no belief system, a path for those who know suffering is inevitable, but choose how they endure it. That is true power. Stoicism, a philosophy not promised by heaven, but forged through inner strength. Like that man, hardened by fire. At birth, he had no freedom. Epictetus, the one who was bought, a slave's name, a man who belonged to others, no possessions, no power, no hope. In a world where human worth was measured by labor, Epictetus was just a shadow. Yet, like coal becoming diamond under pressure, his years in slavery forged him. One day, as a young servant in a Roman noble house, Epictetus was beaten so brutally, his leg broke. It is said he looked at his master and calmly said, "If you continue, you will break it." And when the crack came, he simply said, "I told you so." No hatred, no resentment, no complaint, like a pebble in a flood, silent but strong. That silence was not weakness. It was the peak of inner strength, a silence heavier than 1,000 angry cries. He began observing, not the outer world, but the world within. The wealthy remained anxious. The powerful still trembled. They feared losing money, fame, love. And Epictetus realized true freedom is not outside the bars, but within the will. Day by day, Epictetus delved deeper into the human soul. His school's conversations were not lectures, but awakenings. He didn't teach how to conquer others, but how to conquer oneself. One day, a young student who valued status came in distraught. He had been publicly ridiculed for a minor mistake during a speech. Epictetus gently said, "You weren't defeated by the criticism, but by your attachment to hollow fame." He told of a once respected official who defined himself through public admiration. Stripped of his titles, he fell into despair. Epictetus sighed. People don't fear losing status. They fear losing the self built upon admiration. He taught them to face the truth, that nothing is truly ours forever. Wealth, fame, even this body, they are fleeting. The only thing you own is your choice, to live by reason or by emotion. A student, heartbroken by betrayal, came to him in tears. Epictetus did not console. He asked, "If you were a ship, what kind would you be? A tiny boat capsized by waves, or a sturdy vessel that knows storms are part of the sea?" The answer didn't come immediately, but a decade later, that student, now a teacher himself, recalled that moment as a turning point. Epictetus didn't just teach philosophy, he lived it. When he fell ill and was asked if it hurt, he replied, "I can't control the pain, but I can control the groan." Each day passed. Strangers came to his humble porch. Conversations, short or long, planted seeds. No one left with a lecture. They left with a new sense of grounding. Epictetus left no monuments, only echoes, not carved in stone, but in souls who stood their ground. A small flame, not blinding, but strong enough to burn through stormy nights. Today's world is chaotic. Gas prices soar, pandemics rage, job loss, loneliness, the pressure to succeed. We drown in information, yet lack direction. And in this turmoil, values once thought forgotten, serenity, self-control, acceptance, become vital. And that spirit lives on in ordinary people. A single mother in Detroit, once working at an auto plant, lost her job overnight when the factory closed. No complaints, no blame. She reassessed her finances, embraced minimalism, realized her talent for teaching, and began tutoring online, rebuilding life for her child. She said, "I couldn't control the factory shutting down, but I could control how I found a new path." A student in Austin failed his final exam and considered dropping out. But one night, he read Epictetus's words, "No one can harm you without your permission." He returned, studied again, and retook the exam, not to beat others, but to beat fear within. A businessman in San Francisco, bankrupt after years of building his career, didn't despair. He started a blog, shared his story, and helped others face failure. He wrote, "I lost everything, but I still had myself. And maybe that's enough." Each of them is a modern Stoic. No shouting, no despair, just quietly standing up, moving forward, with open eyes and a mind that refuses to be a victim. They don't need to name the philosophy, but they live it every day. If one day you wake up and everything you thought was stable crumbles, what would you have left? If no one recognizes you, can you still recognize yourself? Stoicism doesn't hand you armor, it gives you a mirror, so you can face what you fear most, yourself. Sometimes in the fire of destruction, what remains isn't material, but the core of who you are. The man in the flames, he wasn't a superhero, just an ordinary person training daily so the extraordinary wouldn't break him. And you, do you have the courage to start training today before the fire comes? Imagine if you lost your phone, your link to the world. Would you feel empty? If social media vanished today, no likes, no responses to your stories, would you panic? We live in a world where our worth is measured by external signals, followers, compliments, emojis. But who are you when no one is watching? Stoicism poses a simple, brutal challenge. Can you stand tall without validation? The modern Stoic isn't someone who cuts off from the world. They use social media, work at corporations, have families, friends, relationships. But deep within, there's a still axis, an unseen pillar. A friend of mine, an architect, was fired for a minor mistake. He didn't blame anyone. He spent 3 months living simply, rereading meditations every night, reflecting deeply on what he had missed while chasing work. He said, "Only when I had nothing to cling to did I have time to understand myself. I'm not wealthier, but I feel fuller than ever because I know who I am and what truly matters." Strength isn't muscle. It's accepting reality without denial, excuses, or judgment. You can't avoid failure, but you can choose how to rise. You can't make everyone love you, but you can learn to love the silence when no one is around. You can't control the world, but you can master each breath, each thought, each action, no matter how small. Stoicism is constant practice, a habit of self-observation, the courage to ask, is this really within my control? And if not, then let go. Letting go isn't surrender, It's ultimate freedom. You're not led by emotion. You don't lose yourself in impulse. You don't rage because someone said something you dislike. You don't fall apart because someone left. You're calm, but not numb. You're strong, but not cold. You can cry, not out of weakness, but because you know tears are part of growth. Stoicism doesn't make you stone. It makes you fully human, living with purpose, with principles, knowing what is and isn't in your power, daring to face fear without letting emotion drag you from reason, steady enough to live truthfully in a changing world. And in the end, when the fire comes, as it always does, you don't scramble for escape. You take a deep breath, look it in the eye, and smile, not because you're unafraid, but because you know what you can control and what you've learned to release. Each choice, each step, each thought you've sharpened, not to avoid the fire, but to walk into it and remain whole. No one knows when that moment will come, but when it does, and it will you be ready to recognize yourself in the flames? Or put another way, are you ready to live as though each day is preparation for the inevitable?